Hey guys, so I want to talk about something different today, and that's Mormon cultural erasure. So, as an ex Mormon, you might think that I don't care about Mormon culture or I am no longer part of it, but I disagree. I think being Mormon is more than just religious, it's also cultural, it's to some degree ethnic after all. There is a unique Utah phenotype that came out of the Mormon migration west. You don't have to be ethnically Mormon, of course, and I wouldn't say that makes you more Mormon or anything, but it does exist. It is real. I have that ancestry myself to some degree, 50-50 or whatever. And John Dehlin, he didn't talk about that last point, but he talked about how, he still identifies as a Mormon, even though he doesn't believe in Mormonism. So it's definitely bigger than just currently being part of the religion or identifying that way. So there's some, there's multiple instances of cultural erasure that have been going on. I often hear online from older people saying that, they don't really recognize the church or, just, kind of bemoaning how it just feels so different now these days. And I think that's real. I think a lot of that has been recent. I think a lot of that is just natural evolution over time, but I think a lot of that has been top down leadership decisions. So to start, Mormon theology, it's a very distinct part of Mormonism. It's really interesting. Maybe now I almost feel the same way I feel about it as I feel about complex fantasy world building, where I don't really believe in it, but I still find it very fascinating. And it is fascinating. It's all this interesting intellectual synergization that came out of Joseph Smith and some of the people who succeeded him. So, but so many of these really interesting ideas have just been completely dropped. The church leadership won't talk about them if they make an essay or any kind of statement about it. They downplay it or they deny it. Ideas around how many gods there are, what it means to be a god, you know, the origins of gods, the hypothetical chain of gods, all that stuff. Just all these interesting ideas around many worlds and all these things. They're not talked about anymore. They don't show up in general conference talks, even though they used to. And yeah, it's really lame. What you're left with is just this really really generic, Christianity, and of course that's reflected in other ways. Google Maps icon, the Liahona, or not the Liahona, the angel Moroni with the trumpet being replaced by the cross. All these things, top-down conscious choices, and the kind of the direction over the years to stay away from quote unquote deep doctrine and you know keep church as generic as possible, as shallow as possible. All these things combine to some degree erase Mormon culture, to make it almost like anathema to even talk about many of these things in public or even necessarily in private. And it sucks, it's part of the effort to globalize the church or just better fit in into general society, be more accepted by, other Christians and whatnot. But it sucks, it's lame, and it definitely makes Mormonism not feel like Mormonism. All these super distinct Mormon beliefs, they're now denied or downplayed or just not talked about, and it's a real shame. So another aspect of Mormon cultural erasure, I would say, is of course the removal of the name Mormon. You can't remove a people's name without it taking away their identity to some degree. Imagine if Germans could no longer call themselves German, or French people could no longer call themselves French. It's Yeah, it obviously erases that identity. With the term Mormon, there's so many associations. Some are positive, some are negative, but it's just Mormon. That's all it is. You think of the, you know, maybe a bit unusual but very nice family at the end of your neighborhood. You know, they're the Mormons. Meet the Mormons. It's a distinct, it's a distinct term for a distinct people group. And we've always enjoyed that term, most of us, and it's a real shame that it got removed. I mean, saying I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints feels like you're a robot, like you're a lawyer, like you're doing PR for the corporation that is the Church of Jesus Christ. I don't like it, and it'd be fine if you could choose either the or they used the full name and proper things, but allowed you to say Mormon, but no, it was turned into a major victory for Satan. And yeah, it just ended up being cultural erasure. And another example of cultural erasure, a bit more subtle, maybe definitely less significant, but definitely something I felt. So things like the new hymn book, where the other Sunday, many Sunday, some months ago, we were trying out some of the new hymns at church. So you know, and this hymn I don't remember what it was called. It sounded like sort of like a black gospel hymn, and we sang it. We tried playing the piano for it, and it wasn't like a bad hymn or anything, but it just wasn't us. You know, it felt weird. It felt like I had stumbled into someone else's church. I didn't feel like I was in a Mormon church. I guess I kind of felt like I was in a black church or a more generic Protestant church, but yeah, it really sucked. All these things where we're trying to adopt just the music and terminology and all these things of other churches while downplaying our own unique music and terminology. It sucks. It feels weird. It feels like a cultural erasure. It just feels like I don't even recognize my own church anymore. Well, to some degree. And I would say the combined effect of all these different factors has that result where, being Mormon is no longer, or it doesn't feel as distinct anymore, at least, you know, in an external sense. Internally, you're still very unique, but, when you're at your church or, you're seeing news about your church or interacting with church media, it's so generic now. And yeah, it sucks, because like I said, it's not just a religion, it's not just a religious institution, but it is a culture that you can receive and maintain, even if you don't still believe in it, and it's to some degree ethnic. So yeah, so I think that's really disappointing. But yeah, let me know what you think, and yeah, comment down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good one. Goodbye.